Hey everybody. Hello, hello, hello. All right, I'm gonna start now. Let's find Jess. Let's see. Requests. I still don't know how to do this after all this time. Here we go. Jess. Jess.
We did it!
Yay! So sorry. I think it's funny to me that I still don't know how to use my phone.
I was gonna say, I actually feel vaguely comforted that you two have problems. Like every time I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't.
Maybe. Maybe that. Oh.
Hello.
Sorry, I don't know what just happened. Oh no, this can't be good. No. How are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. No, I can't do this. Sorry, I hit a filter and it was like, oh, this is an appropriate one. Team Joe.
Perfect. Perfection.
How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's like final home stretch.
I know.
Tomorrow. So just trying to really stay focused, talk to as many voters as possible. And like, I'm so glad to be talking to you. This is so great.
Likewise. Where are you today?
I'm in Washington, D.C. right now, which honestly I'm very sad about. Usually I would have like moved to Georgia or Arizona or Texas for like the final 6 weeks. And
Right.
so this is like, this
Right now.
pandemic has stolen kind of the best part, which is like right now we would usually be in like some dirty office, like eating a lot of pizza, laughing a lot, and talking to voters.
Oh my goodness. You're in the thick of it too. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
DC.
I mean, it's a little bit surreal to do this like the day before election day because, you know, I've been doing these for a couple months. When we started, it was like, okay, make sure you get engaged. Like election day is coming. And now it's like, no, sorry. It's here. In case you've been living under a rock, welcome. Let's go.
Here it is. Time to like get going. I mean, what are your like basic kind of thoughts approaching tomorrow? You know, what do you feel like? What's the first thing you think of? What's on your mind?
Yeah. Number one is I really want everyone to know that it's possible we might not have results on election night.
Right. And that's okay.
It's totally okay. In fact, in a lot of elections, we haven't had results on election night. It's kind of normal. I think just like in social media life, you know, you just want that like instant, tell me everything right away. But you know, it's like very possible that we go to bed tomorrow night and we don't really know. And it could even be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, potentially.
Yeah.
So that's just, I think that part is really, really essential because it shouldn't worry people. Like we don't want folks to worry. And I think, you know, people have a lot of anxiety about the election. I've definitely heard that loud and clear.
Yeah.
So this is one more thing that people don't need to be anxious about. Like if we don't have the results for a couple days, we're expecting that.
Well, and I feel like the current administration is kind of using the current situation to sort of play up some sort of conspiracy. And I wish everyone would understand that that's all BS. I mean, it's like, this is what we're doing. We're mailing in the votes. We got to wait until they're tallied. Period. The end, you know?
And because so many people have voted by mail more than have ever done before, usually when we're going to vote in person, you know, we're tallying those results kind of in real time. But if you mailed your ballot like 2 days ago, it might not arrive. That's totally okay in most states. And so it just means that like we actually do really need to make sure that we're getting all those ballots and counting all those ballots. In a state like North Carolina, for instance, There was a court ruling last week. They have 9 days after the election to get the ballot and have it counted. So like,
Yeah.
that's a long time. And we have
it's
to,
fine. That's what we're doing.
fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. So that's like my big thing. My other big thing, which is just like the most important thing for everyone to know, is that it's totally safe to go vote in person. And if you haven't voted yet, you got to go vote in person tomorrow. Like you cannot not vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mail-in was really good, but it's probably a little late to mail it in. Am I right? I mean,
yeah,
like,
it's
or drop it in a box. That's what I did. It was so easy.
That's right. Driving box super easy and like very painless. Like, I don't know about you, but we walked like down the block and
Yeah. I drove a couple blocks away. There was no one there. I mean, it was like really chill.
Yep. You can't drop it off in your, in the mailbox, then definitely got to go vote tomorrow. In a bunch of states, there actually is same day registration. And so even if you're not registered in many, many states, you can actually go and register to vote on election day and vote on election day. So if you go to iwillvote.com or voyavotar.com, then you can actually check and see, like, is it still possible to register? And, one thing too that I feel like is really important to tell people is if you're not registered and you can't vote in this election, honestly, like, that's even more of a case to get registered so that you can make sure you can vote in the next few elections. Like, if you are eligible to vote, please, please, please make sure that you exercise that right, whether that's being registered or actually voting yourself.
Yeah, and we'll post those links that you just mentioned.
Awesome.
It's confusing. It's a confusing year. You know what else I found confusing was, when I opened the ballot, obviously I've been keeping up with the presidential election, but all the local propositions and things like that, and it was a little, here in California, I found an amazing website. There's a few of them, but you got to look that it's not an ad, and you got to look that it's not for profit, because it's a really good way to make sure you're getting a non-biased opinion. You're getting like the overview, and I found one that was amazing. I'll think of the name at some point during this conversation.
Yeah, I think
so I could make an educated decision on everything.
Yeah, it's so good that you did that, because I think people don't realize, like, for instance, in California, there are like very important ballot measures, state house, state senate, and the state legislator has a huge impact on people's everyday lives. Like, a thing I often hear from people is like, oh, the president, that doesn't have anything to do with me. That's like not connected to me. But those down ballot races, I always say, those are actually people who are making decisions about what is going on, where you live, and where you care about. So, perfect example, state legislators set the minimum wage in your state. So how much you get paid is determined by those folks. If you care about Black Lives Matter, for instance, your city council, your county sheriff, your county commissioners, all those people really set police funding in your states. And I could just go on and on, like, literally for forever. If you're mad that your kids are like on 9 things for Zoom.
And all the stuff with the Black Lives Matter movement that's been going on the past 6 months, which I'm a proud supporter of. There are decisions here in California, for example, that directly impact a lot of those issues that were brought up by that movement. So there's things that are very socially relevant right now. So I think for people to go, oh, I'm not political, I'm like, well, but it's especially in 2020, our political situation has veered firmly into human rights and equal rights. And I feel like when you really open your eyes to that, you go, oh, okay, now I know why it's important to vote.
Yeah, I feel like you are such a kind of icon of that, of just like being who you are, having like the expression and like really demanding that people treat you so equally in your career. I feel like when you started your career, that was very, like, I don't know if people realize like how much has really changed on that front. Like, it was so groundbreaking, you really set a trend. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, I feel like in your career, you've really stood for unity, you've stood for free expression, and there's so much division right now, particularly in our politics, and there's so much divisions that people are trying to create. Like, given what you have stood for, like, how do you feel about that? What do you say to people about that?
Well, that's the problem, is that I feel like it's the United States of America. We're one country. Obviously, it's idealistic to be like, everyone get along, but can we try? Can we try to make moves forward? That's my question. Obviously, the current administration has has put certain communities in the crosshairs of attack. I mean, the things that have been said about the Latino community, things that have been said about the Black community, the gay community, is so many of our rights have been reversed that we've fought for so hard for the past couple of years. I mean, specifically, when we're looking at our specific communities in this country,
yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about how the Biden-Harris ticket would help with the massive community of domestic workers in our country? Because I know they've been sort of like targeted, and there's been so much negative propaganda thrown at people in this country that have come here for asylum, people that have come here from another country. It's just not fair.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. You know, I have the privilege of working with domestic workers every day. Those are nannies, elder care workers, caregivers, housekeepers. And so, you know, I think right now people are really starting to understand, like, what is the impact their nanny has made on their life when they are all, you know, with their kids every single day. You know, you're living your house all the time. Like, your housekeeper who keeps it spick and span is like somebody that is really doing you a major service right now. And so, you know, those are also women that are among the most marginalized in our society. They are, you know, make very low wages, between $11,000 and $13,000 a year. They are mostly immigrant, almost like 99% women. And what the Biden-Harris ticket has committed to for them has been really incredible. We've been so proud of the way that they have taken up domestic workers as a really important issue, and that's why we've endorsed them. One is they pledge to support the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights. Domestic workers actually do not have federal labor rights in this country. There are two types of workers, domestic workers and farm workers. They're the only ones who like don't have paid leave and water breaks and sexual harassment, you know, protection from sexual harassment. So the Biden-Harris ticket is committed to passing that, which is like long overdue legislation. In fact, actually, Senator Harris was our co-sponsor of the bill, you know, in the Senate when we introduced it. So like, she is a real champion on this. It's very important to us. The other thing that's really important is the Biden-Harris team has put together a plan for care that is the best plan in the history of the United States, of any campaign. Care is really important because if you are trying to figure out how to pay for your kids, what to do about your parents who are growing older, you know, they want to live at home, they don't want to go to a home.
The COVID crisis is creating this other need. I mean, it's more important than ever to have this extra help.
That's right, exactly. So they have actually committed an obscene amount of money, $775 billion over 10 years, which is more money than anyone has. Yeah, I mean, it's a really big commitment, and it's because they really know that the care that people need and deserve has to be resourced, has to be supported. And right now, that's not happening. People are being really crunched while they figure out how do they pay for, you know, someone to take care, and then how do they also pay for, you know, what happens if they don't have paid time off, which so many people don't, and their family gets sick. Like, all of these things that is like are really crunching families. So we're really, really proud to support the campaign. And to be totally honest, the contrast is so stark on the other side. Like, what Donald Trump will do in the next.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I cannot overstate how bad it will be. And for the women that I work with, domestic workers that I work with, like, it will be so terrible.
How do you feel like the Biden and Harris administration will help sort of repair this toxic divide that has been, you know, waged in our country over the past 4 years? I mean, it feels just like, I've never seen it like this. I mean, people are angry at each other. There's so much division. There's so much hatred and negativity. What do you think some of the specific ways in which the Biden-Harris ticket will help sort of heal us?
Yeah, I'd love to know what you think about that too, actually. And I guess what I would say is, what Donald Trump has done is do everything he can to create fear and to play on people's worst fears and worst impulses. He's talked about, you know, racial, you know, like inciting racial violence. He has engaged in conspiracy theories, you know, interference from foreign governments, just like the very worst, most evil things that, you know, separating children from their parents at the border. Like, all of this stuff is so bad. It's designed to enact like maximum pain and fear and harm. And what you have in the Biden-Harris ticket is people who are saying, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to make you promises that we can't keep. But what I can say is we will get you out of your house and get rid of COVID. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm trying to get out of my house. Like, I'm an extrovert. I need to get out of my house.
And also, I mean, I think the other thing too is that there's so much with all that pain and negativity, it doesn't seem to be based in a whole lot of truth. A lot of it is just aimed in order for Trump to get reelected. I mean, it's literally the absolute truth has gone by the wayside. We don't really have facts anymore. It's like opinion and propaganda in order to influence people, in order to manipulate people. It is so gross what's going on. And you know, you look at any of these debates or any of these press conferences, and the fact checkers come in afterwards, and they're like, "What? None of this is true. Why isn't anybody being held accountable for the truth?" You know, and this whole idea of fake news. I mean, you know, the person that's the most guilty of fake news is Trump. He's the one that throws these seeds to get planted, and then the media just scrambles around trying to break it down, and it's smokescreen. I literally does it in order to avoid the truth.
Yes. I mean, like completely 100%. And I think the really terrible thing about we could not need a trust. Like in the middle of a global pandemic, we need people that we can trust, that we know will always be honest with us, and that will do what it takes to like actually lead us right now. You know, we're seeing a second spike in COVID in the United States. We're seeing other countries going into a second lockdown. We're still in our first lockdown. You know, it's just, and what we also know, which is just so sad, is that we know that over 200,000 people have passed away because of all of those lies and because of the ways that Trump has really been out for himself and not out for the American people. And to me, there's like no greater argument for why we absolutely positively need new leadership. You know, I'm really partisan, obviously, but I don't even think about it as like Democrat or Republican or any of those labels right now. I really do think about it as right and wrong, like good versus evil, like 100%.
I'm so on the same page, because I would even say, like, up until this election, obviously I voted for Obama, and I was really excited for Obama to be our president for so many reasons. And that's when I started becoming into understanding politics, paying attention to politics. But now it's more than ever, I feel like I'm really like, you know what, this isn't about Republican, Democrat. I feel the same way you do. I feel like and his team are actually trying to divide us and make it like us versus them, which is really dangerous, because it's, I agree with you. I think it's way beyond that at this point. We have way more at stake than the typical political issues. It's these human rights issues that we're talking about. I mean, for you know, I know that Florida is a state that's really important in this election.
Oh yeah.
What would you like to say to members of the Latino community in Florida, who make up a large portion of our voting public there?
Yeah, you know, as a Latina woman myself, like I think every day about our community, about what we have gone through under the Trump administration. We've been attacked, we've been called mean names, we've had so much violence. The immigration machine that the Trump campaign and administration have put for us has truly ravaged our communities and separated families, and you know, and just I think like we are the people who moved here. We're the people who gave up everything we had in our homes to come to America, the land of freedom and opportunity. And what I know about Donald Trump is that he is only about freedom and opportunity for himself.
And rich people, for rich people, basically.
People, yes, exactly. And we come from countries where we are fleeing dictators, where we are fleeing governments that, you know, are part of why we left is because we wanted the democracy in the United States. No one has done more to hurt our democracy than Donald Trump. He only cares about himself. He is corrupt dictators that were from the countries where he came from. And we cannot afford for this country to become like that. It just is so important. And so I know that our folks are really supportive of a multiracial democracy, a multi-generational democracy. And Joe Biden is really the person who's going to make that happen. He cares about his families. He cares about our families. And he's really demonstrated that he wants to be a president for all American people. And that's really the job of the president, is like, yeah, you get elected. It's a big campaign. But then after that, you have to lead for everyone, not just the rich or just white people or just white supremacists. And so I know that come tomorrow, we are going to see that Latino turnout is the biggest it's ever been, and it'll be for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I agree. And I also kind of feel like at this point, there are people that have doubts about Biden. I hear conversations and I hear people going, I don't know, I'm not all the way on board. And I am on board. I think he'd be great. But I want people out there to think about this for a minute. If you're on the fence, just pick the one that's not evil. Please. Please pick the one that's not chaos and that's not clueless and that's not, it's not a hard decision to make at this point. If you can't make a decision between these two, you're not paying attention. Do some research. It's very easy to find. And it's easy to get wrapped up in the rumors and the propaganda and these conspiracy theories about members of each other's families, which doesn't really matter, to be honest. Look at the facts. Look at the things that the current administration have done.
Yep.
Factual things that have happened over the last 4 years. If you add them up, it's a really easy decision to make. And anybody that gets caught up in the current media rumor mill thing, you're missing the point, and you're falling for their trap that they've set for you. And the trap is, here, look at this over here, look at this over here. It's really, really transparent when you break it down.
And I think
that people take a second to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I think we're also seeing that happen as like the post-election conversation is happening as well. We've already seen Trump, claiming that he is the winner. We've already seen him claiming that he's going to demand that there's a final count on election night, which we know just will not include everyone's votes. So I think that's the other thing to remember. You're exactly right. They have put forward so much propaganda and misinformation, and they're going to continue to do that as the results come through. So it's up to us to really make sure that we don't get taken in by all of that, because that he can't be trusted. He is a liar. Donald Trump has lied to us over and over and over again. And so he's definitely going to lie about this election.
Absolutely. I mean, it's proven at this point.
Correct.
To me, when he first got elected, there were people going, oh, it's, like Hitler, Nazi Germany. And there were a lot of people that rolled their eyes and thought, oh, that's being really dramatic. But there are a lot of parallels if you really start looking at what Hitler did to get to the point that he got to by World War II. I mean, nationalism, which is like, our country's first, our country, put America first. There are some instances where that is a good thing. Obviously, we want jobs that are, homegrown, and we want everybody to be employed. There's some basic ideas that make sense in that, but ultimately, there's a sense of putting our country first in an era that we're globalized. We're all on our cell phones. Everyone's traveling. Everyone's talking to each other on FaceTime, on Zoom, it's old-fashioned and out of date to pretend like it's going to be possible to close our borders down and make it all about us. That's very weak. It's a very weak thing to do. The strong thing to do is to connect with the world, is to become allies with the world, is to go into coalitions with the rest of the world, like NATO and the Paris Agreement. This is how we as a planet are going to move forward. We're an international world now. It's not the 50s. We can't just do just us. It doesn't work that way. Oh, I think we're having technical difficulties. Are you there? Having some technical difficulties. I can't hear. Can I hear you? Oh no, I can't hear you. Ah! I can't hear you. Here, I'm gonna stop and go back in. Okay, we're trying this one more time, going live again. Trying this again. we are.
Oh my goodness! Thank goodness.
Part two.
Technical difficulties. I mean, I feel like the pandemic has really given me a sense of liberation of just like, there are things you cannot control. It's fine. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's we have to go with the flow at some point, but then you have to pick and choose the things you really fight for. And I think tomorrow is one of those things. Like, I know it's a tough year. I know everyone's freaked out. I know we're all stressed, but like, this is a really important election that's going to affect so many people. And, you know, even if you're somebody that hasn't been targeted by the Trump administration, I feel like, I mean, this is a slightly more spiritual way of looking at it, but the collective energy in the country that we're living in the communities that we're in is being tainted by the current situation. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of toxic negativity. All of the rhetoric that he's spouting, there are people that agree with him and that are running around and acting crazy and trying to enforce some sort of martial law or something. And I'm not saying it to scare people. I'm saying it because it's something to be, you can't bury your head in the sand. You gotta be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that part about not burying your head in the sand is actually really important, because I do feel like people get overwhelmed or people feel powerless or like they can't do anything. And, you know, my job as an organizer is to really motivate people and help them see that like there is actually always something we can do. And I feel like in this last 24 hours, you can go vote if you have it. You can talk to your friends and family to vote. You can make do a volunteer shift, do a tech shift. You can donate to the campaign, Joe Biden's campaign or the Senate campaigns or even down ballot races. Like, they really need your help and support. And I do feel like one amazing thing about my job is that I never feel powerless, because I always know like something that can be done. And one thing I think is really underrated is actually talking to your friends and family. Like, as we go into this election season, people are like, oh my God, I heard you, I should vote. But actually, like, over half of the people who are eligible to vote in America do not actually vote every election.
Exactly.
And so like, the reason you hear this all the time and people just constantly saying this is that most people are gonna hear all this and still say no. And in this election, that is just not an option. We've seen already through the early vote numbers, so many people who have been turning out. It's possible that we have historic turnout in this election, but that will really only happen if people show up tomorrow and make sure that they vote in person. And it can be done really safely, and it's worth it. Like 100%, no matter what happens, it will be worth it.
I agree. And you know what? Maybe make it fun. I mean, if there's your friends and you that haven't voted yet, you know what? Make some margaritas, then put on your masks, go down to wherever you need to go and vote. Make it fun, you know, like make it into an afternoon, you know, a cocktail hour. Happy, you know, just get there. However you need to get there. I mean, don't drink too much where you don't know what you're voting for, but you know,
make a list of who you're voting for before you start the cocktails.
Yeah, or maybe celebrate afterwards with a cocktail. How's that?
Yes. Actually, one of my friends has a project called
Coming up with a voting plan is so important.
Yes, absolutely. Especially right now. It's like, you know, we're super busy. We're trying to handle the kids, everything else. And it's possible you may have to wait in line. We hope that doesn't happen, but you might. And so you want to make sure that you know, like, how are you going? What time are you going to go? How are you going to get there? Like, where is your polling place? And again, you can go to iwillvote.com or voyavotar.com, and you can check both of those to make sure. And, you know, one of my friends actually has a project called Joy to the Polls this year. And there's tons of playlists from people who have given you kind of like a soundtrack to listen. And I think obviously you should also listen to the entire Adam Lambert catalog. That definitely got you through. But if you need some additional music, you go to Joy to the Polls. That's like another thing. I love that. Like, I love the idea that even as people are trying to suppress our votes, we are saying, no, we're going to have a good time. We're going to bring our margaritas. We're going to listen to our music. We're going to celebrate, because we deserve that. At the end of 4 years of the Trump administration, as we like make our voices heard, like, I want it to be so joyful and amazing.
100% agree with you. I mean, and the suppression is real. It's like what you were talking about. I mean, there are clear acts of people being barred from voting. There's like some of the polling stations are like, you know, purposely really crowded. You know what? Screw them. let's prove a point, that no one can stop you from exercising your American right to vote. That is your right, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter the color of your skin, no matter who you love. We are all a United States. We are all here for a reason. Let's prove it to those that think that we don't deserve that right.
Yes, yes, 100%. Yes.
I think that there's something we should remind you. There's a call to action here on this thing.
Yes.
Try this. Get your phone, text WIN to 30330, 30330, and that's the word WIN, W-I-N, in number code. WIN to the number 30330 to get involved in this final stretch. And check your registration, make a plan at iwillvote.com. Also, one thing to remember is on your ballot, there's an option, at least here in California, where you can track your ballot to make sure that it was counted and that it got processed. I think this year, more than ever, with all the the scare tactics that are going on, like, oh, there's going to be voter fraud. To me, that's the Trump administration trying to come up with an excuse ahead of time for losing. So,
right.
F them, get your that's some slippery snake oil salesman stuff right there. So get your vote tracked, make sure it's been counted, because if we find out that something's gone down and you find out that your vote hasn't been counted, I think we can start raising our hands going, something's wrong.
Absolutely. And if anything happens to you like that, if your ballot is messed up in some way, you have any problems at the polls, you see something, you can actually call the voter protection hotline. There are thousands of lawyers all over the country ready to help support everybody. That hotline is 833-DEM, D-E-M, vote.
Great. Awesome. Well, I love that we got to talk today about our specific communities. I mean, for those of you out there that are part of the LGBTQ plus community, just keep in mind that even though it hasn't been a major talking point during the debates in this election, unfortunately, if you really do some research, and also actually the Latino community hasn't been a big talking point either, which I find a little tricky, but I think that they're trying to keep everybody focused. There's a lot to look at. But if you do your own research, if you're a member of these communities, you will figure out very quickly which side of the ballot you should go for. I know I've mentioned it before, but the queer community's rights have been consistently attacked and reversed. I just posted something earlier here on Instagram. There's a whole list of things that the administration have done to us, including the trans ban in the military. There's certain healthcare issues. There's, if they had their way, they would repeal all of the gay marriage situation that we fought so hard for. I mean, with this new conservative seat in the Supreme Court, which is very dangerous what they did. There's just a whole list. So do your research. It's very easy. This is time to do some homework, guys. It's one day.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. And I think what we know is that Joe Biden has actually been a leader on these issues. He was one of the first in the Obama-Biden administration to say that he was supportive of repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and has really everything to use his pulpit to talk about the LGBT community. So if that's the thing that's turning you out, the choice could not be more clear.
It's so obvious. It's so obvious. And if you have any heart at all in your chest and care about your fellow neighbor, if you care about your community, this is the time to vote for the blue ticket. You look at some of the other countries around the world and how they dealt with COVID and how they deal with some of these other issues. And you look at communities in countries around the world that are successful in their current fight against COVID. And there are ways in which we could follow their lead if we had somebody in charge that wasn't too proud to do so.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, I found out actually this morning that a dear friend, longtime colleague had actually passed away of COVID. And, I haven't seen him in about a year. And it really did give me the extra fuel that I needed for these last few days. He deserves so much better. And so does everyone's family who's been affected by this, everyone's family who's passed away. Every single one of those deaths was preventable, every single one. And that is something that it just doesn't, I don't think it really matters like who you voted for in the past or what parties your family has always been with or whatever. I think what matters is we deserve to live and thrive just like as human beings in the world. And that's not happening under the Trump administration.
Yeah, I mean, Republican, Democrat, like do your thing, but that guy is not fit to be president. Period. The end. We can all agree that he is a chaotic orange mess. So, time to go. Boom. All right. Well, Jess, it was so nice to talk to you, and let's all keep our fingers crossed for tomorrow. Everybody, please go vote. Please go vote if you haven't. Talk to your friends. Hold everybody accountable. Tease them if they haven't voted, for God's sakes, you know? Get everybody out there.
Do what it takes.
Do what it takes, please. We want the next 4 years to be amazing. We want the roaring 20s to be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you for doing this whole thing. What a pleasure this was.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Bye. Vote.